in studio with me to analyze what we've just heard, but also look ahead to tomorrow. I've got two of this country's veterans belonging to two of the biggest political parties. Mathews Phosa is a veteran of the ANC and Douglas Gibson is a veteran of the Democratic Alliance. To both of you gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience as we listened to that media briefing. Mr. Phosa, I want to come to you first. And there is so much divide. I think at least a majority of that media briefing, Fikile Mbalula had to respond to questions around the ANC possibly going into a partnership with the Democratic Alliance. And that divide is not found only in the NEC of the ANC, but alliance partners, including outside parties like the EFF. Who should be listened to and who should be sidestepped?
In a democratic environment in which we are, we should listen to everyone, both the voices that agree with us and those dissenting voices. And we should allow a debate to take place. The quality of our decision depends on the nature of our debate. And the processing of that debate alerts the ANC to its blind side and its focused side. So the ANC must be magnanimous and listen and say at the end, tomorrow morning or mid-morning, who they go to bed with. No view must be taken lightly.
Yeah.
And Mbalula made it very clear now that the ANC has not taken a decision to go into bed with the DA as party only. And from my own information, the ANC is talking to all the political parties, all of them, as many as they are, including those who only have one rep, which is the right thing to do. The ANC must listen. It must listen to all, there's no small voice. Those are the voices of the voters.
Yeah. They're
all important voices. And at the end, it must trim this thing to a manageable thing which can become a government. And I think this time tomorrow, we'll have a new government with a new president.
Well, let's hear from the benches of the Democratic Alliance. Mr. Gibson, the EFF leader is of the firm view that if the ANC goes into bed with the Democratic Alliance, a party that you belong to, or the Freedom Front Plus, then it has essentially sold out on the revolution. In fact, how he characterizes this is that this will be tantamount to going to bed with, I want to use his exact words, with white supremacists and Afrikanerdom. How should the Democratic Alliance digest that?
Well, let me say that that's absolutely typical of the self-appointed commander-in-chief. I mean, the pretentiousness of this man is mind-boggling. In this election, he lost votes, he lost seats, he lost a percentage in Parliament, and instead of that, he carries on as though he's an important figure. We remember that during the freedom struggle, he wasn't a freedom fighter. He was the little boy who was carrying the tea to the real freedom fighters. And he's got an obsession about being commander-in-chief and having fighting units and all that nonsense. Now, he described the DA as his enemy today. We're a bit more mature than that. That's why so many people on the other side of the coin laugh at Julius, because we have political opponents, people who have a different view for South Africa. We don't regard them as enemies. But Julius is the enemy of the poor, he's the enemy of the worker, he's the enemy of the unemployed, because the policies that he's propounding are all going to be to the detriment of those people.
Yeah.
He wants to nationalize the mines. What he's going to end up doing, if he ever gets his way, which is very doubtful, is destroying the economy of South Africa and destroying the life opportunities of our millions and millions of unemployed people. So what Julius says and thinks is of little consequence to me and to the DA.
Well, that kind of labeling that the DA is the EFF's enemy, some will argue that that actually started with John Steenhuisen, when he, during the campaign, said that there has to be a fight against a doomsday coalition. And I think the characterization of that was that they were enemy number one. That doomsday coalition would have been EFF and the MK party at the time. So the language here becomes very important. But I take your words. We don't have much time. Let me come to you, Mr. Phosa. The government of national unity, what will it mean, in your view, for the South African economy? Is this what you think South Africa needs right now?
Well, it's a uniting center of power. These parties all got votes, and they were trusted by their voters. So we're harmonizing those votes into one government based on certain principles and believing in the Constitution, the rule of law, separation of power, believing in economic growth and creation of jobs in this country, and rendering services to the people. Those are common things that must agree on. Not scoring points, you look yellow, I look blue. We're South Africans at the end of the day. We have no business to be behaving like little boys and girls.
Mr. Gibson, the moment that will come tomorrow, that first sitting of Parliament, the ANC for the first time with a reduced majority in Parliament, how significant is this moment for this country?
Well, it's a moment that fills me with joy and happiness, because for at least the last 15 years, South Africa has been going downhill. We heard all that nonsense from Mr. Mbulula about the National Democratic Revolution and so on. The fact is, every aspect of life in South Africa has deteriorated over the last years since President Zuma was incorporated. It was become the president. And this is a new opportunity for South Africa to change course.
Would you accede to that as the ANC? Or is that partly why there is no firm decision as such? It does seem that there is still a lot of horse trading.
Look, as part of the negotiation, there must certainly be some sort of an agreement eventually that the DA will have 6 or 8 or however many ministries and how many deputy ministries, and they would express a preference for where they can contribute their skills and where they can really make a contribution. It's not going to be easy, and the president would be aware of that, because of the cadre deployment over the last number of years. Too many people in the civil service are ANC deployees and might not be all that keen to work with the DA minister. So that could be difficult. But although it's correct, Mathews is right, saying it's the president's prerogative to appoint, the fact is, if his suggestions are not acceptable to the other parties in the government, in the GNU, then that won't happen. So there must be some give and take.
Yeah.
I don't know what the current position is, other than I've been told to be cautiously optimistic.
What that means, you are going to have to spell it out to us. Are you able to?
They have to trust the ANC.
No,
that we act in good faith. Why would we act in bad faith, even if we listen to Mbalola? We'll have to act in good faith. But you cannot sit here, you are an attorney, you ignore what the Constitution prescribes. It's prerogative of the president to decide the cabinet. Whatever happens behind the scenes is something else. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it is his prerogative. He must announce the cabinet. And he mustn't agree to be blackmailed in a transactional way. It must be principled. Obviously, why you want a government of national unity, you want to mix your cabinet, get the best from even the other party. Take Holomisa. You say you want to make him Minister of Defense, and he agrees, and it's all agreed. Make him Minister of Defense, what's wrong with that? Even if he's got 1 or 2 seats. So it must be on merit, not because you're holding a gun against my head. That's children's games, man.
Whilst we're still on the president, I'll come to you in a moment, Mr. Gibson. Is he the man to lead this government of national unity?
Well, that is prerogative again of those who will be sitting in Parliament tomorrow to decide whether or not he's the man. Not for me to pass a judgment now. But let me tell you what I think. I think tomorrow this time we'll have a president, and his name is Cyril Ramaphosa.
So clear is that decision. Mr. Gibson, let's come back to you. This government of national unity. I want to come back to the question of the economy. You have had international ratings agencies, and now they've had a backhand, like Fitch, because they've now been told that this is tantamount to political interference. They have expressed quite clearly that an ANC-DA coalition will spell good news for the South African economy. Why should we believe that?
Well, I think we should believe it because it's true. And to have a backlash because they expressed that opinion is really quite short-sighted. It's shooting the messenger because you don't like the message. The fact is that the people who are going to create the jobs for our unemployed and going to ensure that our workers continue being employed and that our young people have a future, those are the people who look at South Africa, its stability and its economic growth. And John Steenhuisen has spelled out very, very clearly what the priorities of the DA are. Stability, respect for the Constitution, economic growth. And I believe if you focus laser-like on economic growth, we will give our people the better life that was promised to them 30 years ago.
Gentlemen, to the both of you, I want to thank you very much for your time.